Thank you so much for listening to my talk. It has been great listening to various talks during ACS National Conference, and I am thankful for the opportunity to share my work. COVID has been a nightmare for pretty much everyone I know, a very long one, a very long nightmare that doesn't seem to go away. But as a volunteer for the American Chemical Society and the Association of Women in Science local chapters, I tried to do anything I could to lower the negative impact of COVID on the community, people around me, and myself. Obviously, the worst impact of COVID is the loss of millions of lives globally, which I'm not going to discuss. While many have access to free vaccination in the US, that's not the case for many people worldwide, including my home country, Iran, which is in real crisis and it's a tragedy there. My focus is more on the professional impact of COVID. Job loss during the coronavirus pandemic has been catastrophic. Many oil companies started to cut their budget as oil demand began to dip. The coronavirus pandemic and quarantine orders intended to contain it had hammered oil demand as many consumers stayed home. At some point, the value of oil went negative. Many oil companies started to lay off a significant percentage of their employees. However, layoffs were not limited to oil companies, as you all know. The figure on the right bottom shows the unemployment rate due to temporary layoffs versus combined five other reasons: permanent layoffs, completing a temporary job, recently entering labor force, re-entering the labor force, re-entering the labor force, and quitting a job. And at its peak in April 2020, the unemployment rate reached 14.7%, with 11.5% of that due to temporary layoffs, which is shown in the blue line. This contribution of temporary layoffs to total unemployment, is an order of magnitude higher than any previous recession since at least 1967. US Bureau of Labor Statistics has looked into seeing if temporary layoffs are becoming permanent. The authors stated that despite unemployment being well above pre-pandemic levels, data do not show that temporary layoffs are becoming permanent. However, as the crisis continues, as we get various versions of virus, Delta variant, and I don't know what other variant will be in the near future, recovery seems to be very slow. Women worldwide have been deeply affected by the COVID 19 pandemic, which has heightened the large and small inequalities both at work and at home that women face daily. A few months ago, McKinsey published a research on the pandemic's gender effect. Pre COVID 19, research had never shown women opt out of the workforce at higher rates than men. Since 2015, in partnership with Leaning.org, McKinsey had surveyed hundreds of companies each year to benchmark women's progress in the American workplace. Every year through 2019, the average overall attrition rate for companies, meaning the percentage of employee leaving, was even slightly higher for men than women. The pandemic, however, had a near immediate effect on women's employment. One in four women is considering leaving the workforce or downshifting their career versus one in five men. While all women have been impacted, three major groups have experienced the most considerable challenges: working mothers, women in senior management positions, and Black women. This disparity, the disparity between men and women, as particularly comes came across as particularly stark with parents of kids under 10. The rate at which women in this group were considering leaving was 10% points higher than men. And women in heterosexual dual career couples who have children also reported more significant increase in their time spent on household responsibility since the pandemic began. While 2020 and 21 has been challenging years for many people, Black women have been disproportionately affected. Black women are three times more likely than non Black women to report the death of a loved one in recent months. I mentioned that I would focus mainly on the professional impact of COVID, but I thought to share some personal stories very briefly. I have a younger sister. She's a brilliant person and currently a PhD student at UC Santa Barbara, but she has severe physical disability and is severely immunocompromised. Because of COVID, before the vaccines became available, I couldn't see her and my parents, who are her caregivers, for more than a year. It was just too risky. I have put a picture of my small wedding day, and while this day was beautiful and memorable, we were saddened that we didn't have our family with us during our special day. I was fortunate that I didn't lose my job during COVID. I didn't become jobless, but the layoffs I mentioned earlier had put a lot of psychological pressure on my mind, on me. For months, I thought I'm going to lose my job. And in addition, I saw several of my friends and colleagues losing their jobs, which was a horrible experience for me. All right, let's move on to some lighter parts of the talk. I have been an ACS member for almost 10 years now, but I got involved in the ACS California section about 2 years ago when I was attending one of their events, and I spoke with Attila Pavlas, who many might know since he was one of the past ACS presidents. Oh, um, later on, I learned that Attila was one of leading recruiters of our Cal LCS chapter. A few months later, I met Danielle Tian at an AWIS East Bay event, and she recruited me into AWIS East Bay. She asked to have coffee with me and pulled me in. I have put the mission statements of two organizations here because I felt and I saw a lot of overlap between these two. I felt as a volunteer I could achieve more and reach out to more people if we in the leadership teams of two local sections joined forces. The AWIS East Bay collaboration with California ACS has allowed us to co-host events on topics of overlapping interests to both groups, expand our network, and most importantly, build our community of women identifying scientists in East Bay, California. And those are the women, many of them were people who I mentioned earlier were suffering from COVID, and we wanted to help in both communities. I put the picture of Danielle Tan here, and you can see, and also past and current California ICF presidents, James Postma and Alicia Taylor, who were super supportive of my activities and involvements. And that's very crucial if you're a manager, if you're a leader. It doesn't matter, the volunteer place, at workplace, any group. As a team lead, your role is to encourage your team and to remove the barriers on their way to success. And that's what I think I was able to deliver results for our California ICF and East Bay AWIS. It was because of very supportive leadership and very supportive environment in both organizations. Seeing the impact of COVID at my workplace, the industry, and the community, I started putting together events for our members' professional development, primarily STEM women, but we made these events actually open to everyone. I invited top experts and career coaches as our guests at no cost to anyone, to a community. All of our events were free. I reached out to many well known and nationally recognized authors and leaders to be our guest speakers. Of course, I got rejections from various people. Some people didn't reply to my multiple emails, but it didn't change my mind. I knew this is inevitable. There would be some rejections. I was and I am very much determined to do everything I can to help my community. It's interesting. When we think about getting a PhD, we sometimes focus on our research topic, the technical things we learn during those 4 to 8 years. But another expertise, another skill we grow is resilience. Being okay with many failed experiments and carrying on for eventual success is a talent, is a muscle I developed during my PhD years, which helped my volunteering for ACS and AWIS. Some examples of our events were the event with Dr. Lois Frankel, New York Times and Wall Street Journal bestselling author, an executive coach, and an internationally recognized expert in the field of leadership development for women. We also started these bi-monthly career conversations with Dr. Barbara Smith, who was VP of R&D in Chevron Oronite. Our events with Dr. Barbara Smith were these mentoring circles. We pick a topic important for career development in advance with some brief reading material. And during our session, we have really open conversations about the subject. And also invited speakers for technical talks about their important research. As racially motivated act of violence rocked the country last year, we started creating a speaker series focused on breaking down the systematic barrier that limit minority and women's advancement, equity and participation in STEM and at workplace in general. For example, we invited Leland Jordan, now former Chief Diversity Officer of Chevron Corporation, to join us to discuss the case for diversity and inclusion, with introductory remarks by Sandy Robert, AWIS National CEO. ACS National actually invited Lee for a plenary talk at ACS National Fall 2020 meeting based on our event, and maybe some of you attended Lee's talk. We also had Dr. Sherine Obare, Dean of Joint School of Nanoscience and Nanoengineering at University of North Carolina, Greensboro. She shared her personal experience with us and taught us why and how successful STEM women of color must network differently. I'm happy to report that our event with Dr. Obare is one of the ACS Chem Luminary Award finalists. We also had Dr. Kirk Nass, an R&D team lead at Chevron Oronite and a founding board member of Chevron Pride. He shared his journey in establishing LGBTQ inclusion at Chevron in 1990. He talked about how his effort, his and other uh, his other colleagues' effort paved the path for Chevron to add sexual orientation to their non-discrimination and non-harassment policies, extend domestic partner benefits to employees, and officially establish employee network group. Chevron was providing health insurance for LGBTQ partners way before it was required by any legal measures. This event with Dr. Kirkness is also one of the ACS Chem Luminary Award finalists this year. An analytical chemistry faculty member and CSU Dominic Hills, Barbara Belmont, shared her journey from shy and humble beginnings, her decision about education and career, and her quest to support find and support queer people like herself in STEM was one of our other events. This event with Queer in STEM, One Person's Journey, was an event shared between Cal CS, AWIS East Bay, and Chevron Pride. We also gave the option of donation to our organization during our events. Most significantly, we collected over $5,000 for one of our events, which was the online screening of this great movie, Picture Scientist. As soon as I heard about this movie, I contacted the movie personnel, and because we were quick to act, we could take advantage of this opportunity to be among very few organizations that got this screening for free. So we offered this movie for free but added donation option. As a side note, if you haven't watched this movie, I cannot recommend it enough. And I know it's now available on Netflix for everyone to watch. To show the impact of our work on the community, I'm showing some quotes from our attendees of these events, expressing their appreciation and gratitude and expressing that they learned a lot. Also, I thought to show the number of attendees in our events. Again, we had significant participation in our events with many of the same people attending in our events, indicating that they were happy with the outcome. We have consistently had large number of people showing up. You can probably hopefully see the numbers: 500, 300, 150, 50. And I should say here that we are very thankful to ACS National for giving us a Zoom account that can handle 500 people attending our events. And we were able to allow people from everywhere attend our events. We had people across the US and globally. We had people from India, from Turkey, from Europe, Asia, and we had events, it was 4 a.m. in Europe, but people attended from Europe, showing that they found our events useful and worth it. Regarding the impact on the workplace, I advertise our events on Chevron's internal Facebook pages that is only available to Chevron employees. Many of our events attendees were Chevron employees who benefited from our professional development events and networking opportunities. We also saw participation from former Chevron employees who unfortunately lost their jobs during the layoffs I mentioned earlier. Still, hopefully, by attending our events, they could find at least some leads for new job opportunities. I also had various Chevron leaders as our guest speakers, actively strengthening Chevron's reputation and relationship with community and reputation for valuing diversity and inclusion. These leaders were very generous with their time, sharing their valuable input for our members and community. And I am personally very thankful to each one and all of them. The most positive impact for me is this excellent, gratifying feeling about contributing to our community and being able to some extent, alleviate the true pain of COVID. The appreciation messages I've received from our members and community have been very rewarding and mean the world to me. Additionally, I have expanded my network and have found terrific friends through AWIS and ACS work. The leadership teams of both groups consist of very great people who are very generous with their time and are always there to help. So it's been a true pleasure to be working closely with these great, awesome people. Another benefit I didn't expect but genuinely appreciate and enjoy is the visibility of God at the workplace and in community. I was picked as Outreach Volunteer of the Year award by California ACS section. My work as a liaison between ACS and AWIS local chapters was recently featured on AWIS National Magazine. I was able to um, nominate my dear mentor for AWIS North California mentorship award, and she won, and that was really great feeling for me. And overall, I think it's been a win-win situation for everyone, and I cannot recommend more to everyone to volunteer for any um, organization you're passionate about, and especially for ACS and AWIS, Association of Women in Science. With that, I'd like to thank you for your attention. I invite you to check out our websites, calcs.org and ebawis.org, and attend our events. We have a lot of fun events coming up very soon. Also, please feel free to add me on LinkedIn and shoot me any question you might have, and I'd be happy to chat with anyone who's interested to learn more about my work and anyone who wants to volunteer. Thank you very much.